Rivers. My name is Rob Dauster. That gentleman that you see there with me is the one and only Coach Da'Sean. We talked about this a little bit over the weekend on the locker room session. I don't know how many of you guys were able to hear it, but Da'Sean is now coaching at Wheeling University in West Virginia, and he is kind enough to join us live from the is that the coach's room? Are you in the locker room? Where are you at right now?
Coach's room. Make sure you keep it down, everybody. Otherwise, you may get me fired. So,
no, you're not.
I'm just joking.
We won't let them, man. We won't let them. we got people on this day.
Indeed.
So, did you get the win over the weekend? Give me the word.
Ooh, no, we did not. Got trampled a little bit. Great first half, and second half just we fell apart a little bit. But
so Coach Da'Sean is still over his career, huh?
Yeah, man. This is a tough. This is a tough 3 games right now. But guys are getting better, and we're in the gym, so their effort and their heart's in the right place. It's just a matter of finishing the game strong, man. We had leads all 3 of these games, and we let them go in the second half.
So you mentioned finishing the game strong. And you mentioned leads in the second half and letting them go, which is a perfect segue
exactly
to what happened on Sunday afternoon between Michigan and Wisconsin. And I think, we're going to get into Creighton a little bit, and I do want to have a little bit of a discussion about the Player of the Year race with you, as well as we got to talk about Loyola and Drake and what that means for the Valley. But the biggest talking point coming out of this weekend is Michigan and how good they looked and that win that they had over Wisconsin. And I'll tell you what, man, coming out of a COVID pause where they didn't play for 3 weeks was just so unbelievably impressive. So just give me, before we kind of dive into the nitty gritty of it, give me your overall impressions of the game, impressions of Michigan, impressions of Wisconsin. What'd you take away, Coach?
It's one of my favorite games because it was half-court basketball the entire time. It was ball screens and reads and finding people and making plays. It wasn't just which, I enjoy watching an athletic game, but I wasn't much of an athlete. So I like watching the part of the game where I enjoyed the play. And Wisconsin was great in the first half. Michigan was great as well, but it was another level the second half. It was such a close game, and just to see how well Hunter Dickinson did he basically won them the game with his activeness and how well he was on the glass.
Yeah, he was just a monster. An absolute monster. And for me, I wrote about this a little bit, but the most impressive part to me was in the second half. The thing about Wisconsin is they don't beat themselves, right? They don't commit a bunch of turnovers. They're going to try to drain the clock. They are a difficult team to come back on. And Michigan was down by 14, and they came back and won. And the way they did it was just by basically sitting in a stance for 30 seconds every single possession and making sure that Wisconsin just either it was a shot clock violation, it was a rush shot at the end of the clock. They just played unbelievable, terrific, disciplined, well coached. Everything that you want out of a half-court defense is what Michigan did in the final 20 minutes. And that alone is impressive to do that on the road against a team as good as Wisconsin. But the fact that they did it coming out of a pause, okay, I'm assuming you've had injuries in your career where you were out for 2 weeks before, right? So just kind of take me through, one, what that does to your legs when you're out for that amount of time in the middle of the season, and two, how impressive it is to kind of be able to work through the second half of a game when you really haven't played. They weren't in game shape. Isaiah Livers prior to the game had a quote where he said, "Our first practice back felt like the first practice in the summer." So just kind of take me through what that does to your legs and kind of how quickly you can lose your shape.
As a player, if you're in the middle of the season, you have to take any time off. It kills you. Anytime you get out of rhythm from your normal schedule, what you would normally do, you're practicing, you're whatever the case may be, lifting, all that stuff. When you get thrown off for a week, it's almost as good as being out of shape. It's literally the same thing. So it was impressive to see them come back and play the way they did, but it also lets you know Juwan Howard knows what he's doing. He's seen his share of injuries as a player and knows how hard it is to come back. And then these things are as handicapped as everybody is with COVID this year. Mm-hmm. It shows that how much, I want to say foresight, but more or less just how prepared, how much he got these guys ready. He prepared them. He probably didn't kill them in practice, but he definitely got them somewhat conditioned the best that he could to prepare them for this game. you're going against Wisconsin at Wisconsin. Like, you can't show up. Like, granted, they were down 14, but it didn't look like they were dragging. You know what I mean? They seemed, it was just like they needed to get some kinks straight, and they straightened them out the second half.
Yeah, I mean, the first half they gave up, it was – so this is courtesy of Dylan Burkhart, who digs up these stats. He runs Hoops. Like, every Michigan fan knows who he is. In the first half, Michigan allowed 1.37 points per possession. In the second half, Michigan allowed 0.58 points per possession, which is like 0.58 is basically like the Bucks playing against my men's league team.
Exactly.
1.37 points per possession is like
you're not getting a bucket.
Yeah, like the Warriors playing against my men's league team, more or less. So it was pretty unbelievable, the turnaround that they made. So, like, are you with me that Michigan, like, without question, third best team in the country, number 3 team in the country? Because to me, at this point, it's like we had all the day. You know how much content we did that I thought was good content on, like, yeah, there's no third best team in the country, and now all of it's just like, yeah, that was pretty fucking dumb.
It goes back to our last show where we talked. It was like, do you think Villanova's a good? Do you think they're the third best team? I was like, yes. Until we got to see how Michigan does coming out of the pause, because I felt like Michigan as a whole team is a better team. First half, I was worried. Lean forward, and these guys were posting up Mike Smith. They were getting good shots and taking advantage. Tons of post ups, tons of ball screens, getting where they wanted to. So I was worried about Michigan defensively. But I mean, like you said, that second half turnaround, like, that was an eye opener. Like, I was sitting there watching the game, and I was just like, I mean, there's nothing else to say, but they sat down, like you said, and just strapped up the second half and did what they're supposed to do. So yeah, third best team, man.
Really impressive comeback, man. And look, when they roll out that lineup where they got Dickinson at the 5, they got the 3 big wings with Livers, Franz Wagner, and
who played great.
Brown.
Great.
Who, Livers?
Livers played great, but I love, like, the little stuff we got from Franz. Like, Franz played great, bro. Like, it's just so difficult to guard when you have somebody that big that has to make, like, Reavers and Potter step out. Like, Reavers and Potters are good players. They didn't kill like I expected them to last night, but they're still good players. And you can still see the mismatch when Franz is stepping out on the perimeter. Like, these guys are kind of like in areas they don't feel comfortable in. You can see it by the way they're defending the ball. So, like, Franz I'm pulling for him to go into the draft. So
yeah, I think he's probably the best prospect in maybe even in the Big Ten. I don't think that he necessarily has like the star power, but he does all of the little connective things that make a basketball team run. Like, there were times in the second half where he was switching on to Demetric Trice, and like he would slide and keep Demetric Trice in front of him, and
that's no easy task.
Yeah, I mean, you love Trice, and
I still do.
He couldn't get around Franz. Like, he blocked shots, he jumped past lanes. He still isn't quite shooting it as well as I was hoping that he would, but like that'll come. He's young, but it's the quick passes around the perimeter to keep the offense moving. It is the cuts that kind of create some space. Like, he does all of the little smart things that you need to be able to do to make an offense run. And he's a perfect role player on this team. Would be a perfect role player in the NBA. But the larger point is
the game well.
The larger point is when you get those three big wings out there with Hunter at the 5 and Eli Brooks just like such a pest on the ball at the point. That is a very, very, very good defensive team. And I do think it's worth noting that I think this is a good matchup for Michigan in the sense that Micah Potter and Nate Reavers weren't able to make Michigan pay for having a guy that like a kind of like a landlocked 5 in Hunter Dickinson. I know that Wisconsin was doing a lot of ball screen stuff down the stretch, but like that's not their bread and butter, right? They don't want to have Demetric Trice and ball screens on every possession. If you have them doing that, it means you got them out of what they wanted to do. And like Dickinson, man, he beat the hell out of Potter and Rivers. You want to hear a crazy stat?
He really did, though.
This is a crazy stat. Hunter Dickinson had 15 rebounds in that game. Do you know what Potter and Reavers combined for?
Like 3 or something. So they barely were. I was about to say they didn't have anything. Like zero. Zero. I didn't think 0 was a number, but I lie to you not. It was. How can I put it? It was. You could see how much of a fit. Like he imposed physicality on these dudes. Like it was a mismatch. Like he was literally everywhere. Like every rebound he got, 5 offensive rebounds. He was just like he was everywhere in the court that these guys were, and they couldn't get the ball from him. Like he literally like bullied them. I hate to say bully because like these Potter and Reavers are who I think in the Big Ten are like what Wisconsin usually has is their 4 or 5s, and they couldn't do anything with them. Did you see the block Potter's had? Block makes an amazing block, and then they get Hunter Dickinson gets the rebound, puts it right back. Like he was just everywhere. He played great. He played great.
He had 3 huge offensive rebounds in the second.
Yeah,
huge.
The second half. Yeah.
Like you have to be able if you're Wisconsin, and the thing about it that I would be so frustrated with if I was Greg Gard is that Potter on 3 of them, right, had the box out. Like he had Dickinson pushed under the basket. Dickinson just went up and got it. Right? Like Potter was trying to box out, but didn't go get the ball. Like that's correct me if I'm wrong. You know more about basketball than I do. But the point is, like after a box out, you still got to go get the ball. You're not just trying to look at the ground. Like maybe that's a drill you do in practice, but you got to go get it. And
you got to rebound it.
And sealed it. He went and got it, man. Credit him.
Rule is, man, if you're gonna box someone out and you're afraid that they're gonna get the rebound, then you got to at least make sure they don't get it. You can't box out and then they get the rebound too. So, you either box out to rebound it or you make sure your man doesn't get it because it's a waste if you don't. And
the last thing I want to talk about with Michigan, and we can move on to Creighton after this, is that Juwan Howard. There's a trend of coaches that have played in the NBA and made a ton of money playing in the NBA that come to college and then don't have the success that you would necessarily expect with someone with that level of basketball experience have, right? And it goes beyond just like Chris Mullin and Patrick Ewing. There was Terry Porter at Portland, and hold on, give me 1 second, I'll find a full list. Clyde Drexler did not do all that well. Mark Price at Charlotte did not do all that well. Michael Curry at Florida Atlantic. Isaiah Thomas, Dan Marley, Danielle Marshall, right? Jerry Stackhouse. Like there's a lot of guys that come back to college and don't necessarily have the success that you would expect. That's not the case with Juwan. No. And there's a lot of reasons for it. And I think a large part of it is like his personality, the way that he can connect to people, the fact that he comes from like Spo's coaching tree. So, like if you come from that Miami, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra coaching tree, like, you're going to be able to get guys to play. You're going to establish a culture.
Yeah.
Anyone that's played with him or played for him, and this day, just the connection that people have with him. But I think the super smart thing that he did was, one, he kept Sadie Washington, who is a guy that like understands how that Michigan team worked, was able to connect with all the players on the team,
exactly,
and has a ton of experience in like the recruiting space. 2, he brought in Howard Isley, who is an NBA guy, a point guard, and a player that can or a coach that can really help you develop that part of the game. Like Juwan, every big guy in the country should want to go play for Juwan Howard in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Now you also got a point guard where you can say, okay, Howard Isley played like a decade in the NBA. I'm pretty sure he was an all-star for a while. Like, you want to learn how to be a point guard in the league? Howard Isley.
Here.
And then he brought in Phil Martelli, who spent like 400 years as a head coach at St. John's.
St. Joe's. Is it St. John's? St. Joe's. We'll say, St. Joe's.
Yeah, St. Joe's. My bad. And there's no better person to bring in to basically show you like what the day-to-day is as a head coach at that level than a guy that spent 25 years doing it. Because like we say this over and over again, the hardest part about adjusting from the NBA to college is that like 75% of your job as a college coach has nothing to do with the basketball. It's dealing with donors. It's dealing with admins. It's working in the athletic department. It's doing media stuff. It's worrying about class checks. It's dealing with the stress of the fact that if your players make a mistake when you're in the NBA as a coach, it's on the player. If your players make a mistake when you are a coach in college, it's on the coach for not being able to have those guys in line. So I think Juwan, like, he's really, really, really good. And don't get me wrong, but the fact that he gave himself the support system to be able to make that transition like this is not something that can be overlooked.
No, definitely. He did a great job of surrounding himself around people that know what they're doing. And that's what any smart person does. You don't just try to do it on your own. So, like, shout out to Juwan. And then to your point, him, as far as a coach, being able to come in and establish that culture, coming from, Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley and these guys, that's I mean, that's what you want for your college team. You want a culture of guys like you want to create this culture so these guys, when they have new freshmen come in and these guys just fall in line, you establish that culture when it gets there. And I feel like Juwan, being as nice as he is, and also coming from that cloth, he can build that. He's built that, there in Michigan. So
yeah, I mean, he's got the credibility everywhere. He played 25 years in the NBA, so he can connect with people that want to get to the league, and he can say, like, I know how to get there. I can get you there. He has the coaching acumen, so he can say, like, look, if you want to learn how to get better at basketball, X's and O's, like, I can teach you how to do that too. Like, he comes from like a neighborhood in Chicago that, like, I don't think he really wants to go back to all that often. So he can also connect with guys that come from that walk of life. So it's like he's one of these people that everybody he meets in basketball, especially at that level, he's going to be able to have some kind of bond and some kind of connection with. And when you have all of that, plus you happen to be like just one of the most likable and nicest people on the planet, like, I mean, you're set up for success, man. So I'm happy to see it too, because I think college basketball is better when Michigan is good. I think it just makes the sport and the interest in it better. And two, like, it's always going to be fun to see that connection between, like, the Fab Five generation of Michigan basketball and the current generation of Michigan basketball. Like, I mean, everybody who didn't love the Fab Five, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's nice to see that those generations kind of come together. So yeah, I love what's happening in Michigan. They're fun to watch, and I apologize to all the Michigan fans for any bad takes that I had over the years. You got anything else to add on the Wolverines before we can move on?
Nah, it's just to your point, man. It's always good to see good people, good things happen to good people, and Juwan's good people, man. So
yeah, all right.
Congrats to coach.
Before we get into Creighton Villanova, let's just stay in the Big Ten real quick, because I do think that it's the Player of the Year race is an interesting debate, right? Since Luka Garza announced that he's coming back to school, the conversation has been, yeah, Luka's a Player of the Year. What's the rest of first team All-America going to look like? And I've kind of reached the point where I think, yeah, you know what? Maybe it's Ayo. I would assume it might be the National Player of the Year at this point. I think you can make the argument that he is the Big Ten Player of the Year at this point. So I'm just kind of curious what your take is, what your stance is, and, like, when you consider things like National Player of the Year, like what factors into that decision-making process for you?
To me, obviously, I would look at it as what the player does on their team. Like, as far as you look at the stats, that's always the first thing that catches your eyes. All right, let me see the stats. And, I mean, Luka Garza's stats are phenomenal. Now, Ayo's stats are great as well. So you can't, like, push Ayo's stats off. But Luka Garza's stats are just they jump out. Like, this big guy is out there averaging like almost 20 points and friggin' double figure rebounds almost. Like, you can't.
Yeah, he's at 24.5 points per game, leading the country and averaging 8.4 boards.
Like, so he's almost at a double-double.
That's good. According to my sources, Da'Sean, that's good.
That's great. I mean, I've heard of guys winning the National Player of the Year averaging less than that. So he should definitely be, like, on that list. I mean, he's not on the list. He should definitely win. Ayo's been great this year. I'm not going to lie. And just like both teams have had ups and downs. But when I look at the teams and I say, would Iowa be anywhere near where they are without Luka Garza? And then I look at Illinois, and obviously I can say I can't just take Iowa away and say Illinois would be just fine either. But I feel like Iowa takes a big, drastic drop in their team, like what their team will be, or what their team's future will be, versus Illinois' drastic drop when what their team would be if Iowa wasn't there. Like, they definitely would take a loss, but they still have Kobe Coburn, they still have Adam Miller, they still obviously they both have great coaches, but like they still have Frazier, who was like a scorer. He wasn't Io, of course, but they still have some scoring in their style of play and the way they push the ball. Curbelo still, like, they can still get where they need to go. This Iowa team would be possibly Northwestern without, and that's not a slap to Northwestern in a sense, but this is like Iowa.
I'm gonna tell Deion Thomas that you said that.
Here you go. Thanks for just dragging me. I wasn't trying to drag Northwestern because they're a good team, but it's just
you were trying to drag Northwestern.
I said I'm not trying to drag Northwestern.
No, I think you dragged Illinois right there. You basically
said
Illinois beat
no. I said Iowa, if they didn't have Luka Garza, would be Northwestern.
Oh, okay.
It would be like a Northwestern team with as far as like spacing and they're getting shots in the perimeter, and I mean they'd be a good team, but it's like Luka Garza brings a scoring element in the paint that opens up so much for the shooters, like you talked about before in the past. And I mean, with Io gone, it would open up space for other guards to push the ball in transition and make plays. And granted, he's a great player in college basketball and a great player on their team. I just feel like it'd be Luka Garza. He's the bigger piece for his team.
Okay. I'm going to try to talk you into Io DeSunmu. I don't know if it'll work, but I'm kind of at the point where I think Io deserves the award. First and foremost, I think that part of the issue, like I agree with everything you said about Luka, and like what I'm saying right here is basically like saying, okay, is Luka the National Player of the Year or like the runner-up for National Player of the Year? So I'm not saying that Luka Garza is bad. I just want to get that out of the way because every time I say something negative about Luka Garza, like, why do you think he sucks? It's like, well, no. Exactly. Saying the dude is the second best player in college basketball
it's not a slap in the face.
It's not. So the issue with Iowa, right? The reason why we don't think that they are necessarily a national title contender is because of the shit that's going on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that Garza is not fully to blame because there's plenty of guys on that team that are not good defenders, but the fact that he is kind of ineffective guarding ball screens, forcing them to play that zone that is not very good, that's kind of like the root of the issue that they have for me. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is that like the reason why we all love Luka is because he's a statistical outlier, right? Well, averaging 24.5 and 8.4 boards is like it's really good, but I want to set the stage for you on this. Io DeSunmu's numbers this season: 21.7 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 5.1 assists per game. Right? I went back and I checked in Basketball References database, which goes all the way back to the 1992-1993 season. Yeah. Only two other Division I players have put up those numbers at those thresholds for an entire season. One of them was some guy that played for Morehead State in 2004 that I've literally never heard of in my entire life. The other guy was Penny Hardaway in 1992. Averaged 22, 7, and 6 or something like that. If you want to throw in Io's 40% three-point shooting, nobody has ever had the season that he's having right now. And look, this is also a little bit of fun with small sample sizes, but like he is having a statistically outlier season, which is something that I think is worth noting. I would say that Illinois is a better basketball team than Iowa. I think they're more of a threat to win a national title. And the other part of it is like Iowa is the guy that takes over down the stretch for Illinois. I can't tell you how many games they would not have won if it was not for Iowa taking over down the stretch. And Friday was the perfect example. Like Illinois was downright bad at Nebraska. Like they were not a good team. They probably should have lost that game. But Iowa scored 22 of his 31 points in the second half. He scored 10 straight at the end of regulation and 5 straight at the start of overtime to basically ensure that Illinois did not pick up a terrible win. And if you look in just Big Ten play, Io is second in scoring to Luka. Luka's averaging 22 in conference play. Io's averaging 20.5. He's second in the league in assists, and he's top 25 in the league in rebounds. So for me, like, I definitely think it's a conversation. I understand the people that are going to say it's Luka because of all the reasons that you just mentioned, right? Like, it's not wrong to say Luka Garza is the best player in college basketball because he really might be. But I think when you include everything involved in the conversation, I mean, Io is at the very least right there, and there's a chance that he might end up being the guy to kind of step in front of Luke. And
it's very possible with those numbers. It's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, he's awesome. I love him, and I just wanted to put that into the ether, so it's something that we can kind of think about and talk about, and hopefully it generates a little bit of discussion at this point in the season. All right, talk to me about your Creighton Blue Jays. They smacked Villanova on Saturday.
Man, I remember, I think it was like last week or a couple weeks ago, we were talking about, what would you want to add to Creighton's team? And I was like, you know what? I feel like they just need a really big, a big center to help out. Christian Bishop is big, but when they play against bigger teams, it might. Let me shut up. He dunked all over Villanova during this game. Like, he played absolutely tremendous, and it was awesome to actually get a chance to see Zegarowski play the way that we all were waiting for him to play this year. And I feel like he was waiting on a big game to go out there and just play tremendous, and he did. I was Ballack. I was just so impressed with Creighton as a whole, man. Like, they played fast, they played together, they all were dangerous at the same time. Like, I can't even pick. Like, honestly, Jefferson played great. Bishop played great. Like, they all played great, man. And Villanova, Colin Gillespie didn't show much, and JRE did not step up into this game at all, really. Justin would play great more. He played good. But it wasn't enough. Like, Villanova, they were too like it seemed like they were, I don't want to say lax, but they were a step behind from the beginning of the game. You can even see, like, just even when the game was like close, like Creighton's energy and their pace, everything, like, they look like two completely different teams.
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like every time Villanova plays Creighton, Creighton just has the better of that matchup. And I think that their SID tweeted out a stat that since Creighton entered the Big East, Villanova has lost by more than 15 points 10 times in 7 or 8 years, or whatever that is.
10 times?
Yeah, 10 times. Like, it's basically once a year. Once or twice a year, they've lost by more than 15 points. And 4 of those times, Creighton was the one that beat them. And a lot of that was, I don't know if you remember, like the Doug McDermott, Ethan Rogge teams, where it was actually one of my favorite memories from covering college basketball was a game where Creighton, when they had that team and they were rolling, went into Philadelphia, and at the first TV timeout, they were up 27-7 and it hit 9 3-pointers. Ethan Rogge had 5 of them, and like 4 of them were like legit, like 33-footers. Like, the dude was like a step over half court, just caught it and fired it, cash. Caught it and fired it, cash.
Ballack had one night right before the C over there, and he came over half court. I was like, no, cash. Like, it was such an entertaining game to watch. It wasn't like one of those, because like as the game started to go along, you started to see like Creighton distancing themselves away from Villanova. And you know how you watch those games, you're like, oh, it's over. Let me change the channel because they're getting ready to get – like, that's how entertaining it was to watch the game. Like, that's how high-paced Creighton was playing, how well they were playing, and how well they were playing together. Like, I couldn't even – like, I didn't feel comfortable, like, turning away from the game. I was just like, I want to see what else they do. Like, they played great.
Yeah, and it really showcased what Creighton's ceiling can be.
Exactly.
More than anything else. Like, we know that when they're not making their shots, and when Christian Bishop is not playing well, and when they're kind of faced with a team that can kind of out-tough them, out physical a little bit, like that they're in a little bit of trouble. But like, when they get it going and they're making their threes, and Marcus Zegarowski is playing like the Marcus Zegarowski that we've expected all season long, they're awesome. And we finally saw that on Saturday, and it feels like it's one of the first times we've seen it all season long. Like, we've just been kind of waiting for them to get there. Like, and I get it too a little bit, right? Like, Zegarowski had the knee surgery, he had the hamstring injury earlier this year. Like, he has not been at 100%, and like on Saturday was the first time that he really looked like he was at 100% this year.
He looked great. Man.
Yeah,
I'm happy for him. He deserves it, man. He stuck it out. He's been playing not up to his – I know you could tell by the way, like, when you watch the games, man, and things aren't going the way he expects, you can see it on his face. Like, he's not playing to the level that he knows he wants to play, and he's, like, kind of, playing well, but, like, not great like he was last season. And to see the look on his face during the game, man, it was almost like, relieved, and he was happy, and he was hooping, bro. It was a good sight to see.
Yeah, it was. Creighton definitely got it going. That is a dangerous basketball team. All right, so there was some other stuff that happened this weekend. Like, Virginia got a nice win over North Carolina. Alabama scored 115 points. Tennessee lost. Missouri lost. I don't think that those are really. Whatever. It's the SEC. It's so weird this year. I'm much more interested in Drake and Loyola, And I think that.
By the way, I was right. I was right, by the way.
What? That they were split?
Yeah, that knew it. I just knew it would happen.
Yeah. The Sunday's game was hideous to watch. But, I mean, Drake had to have that win. So first and foremost, before we talk into their about their actual profiles and what they kind of look like, just kind of take me through what are your takeaways of these teams, and do you think either of them are kind of built to be able to make a run in March? Because I honestly think Loyola is I think this is a legitimate top 20 team, a team that can make a run to the second weekend if not further. I think that they're significantly better than the team that made the Final Four in 2018. I
mean, it's always tough to say what team what they'll do, more or less, what teams will do when they get into the tournament. Teams are always predicted to do great and then they don't, and there's teams that are predicted to get taken out. So I'm you really never know when it comes to tournament time. Both teams haven't really played anybody during the year, so it's hard to even grasp how they look against what is it, a quad one competition. So yeah. I don't know. I'm hoping it'll be. I love Cinderella stories. That's my deal. So I'm hoping they can come out and surprise some teams. I hope both of them make it. I feel like they deserve it, especially the season they're having right now, regardless of strength of schedule and everything else. I feel like these two teams would be great to have in the tournament, and I feel like it'll be good to see them win games if they can.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. The big thing that's going to stand in the way for Drake is they just lost Tank Hemphill. And, I mean, he broke his foot. He's supposed to be out for 4 weeks. If he's coming back, it's going to be right as the tournament starts.
You won't get that normal.
Yeah, that's tough, man. That's tough. But for me, as of right now, I think both of them really should be in the tournament. The one thing that Drake was missing was that elite win. They had – the only reason they have a top 100 win right now is because Missouri State beat up on a Bradley team that had their 4 of their top 6 players suspended for their weekend series. So they went from being 110th to 87th in the net. So that's why Drake now has a top 100 win. But Loyola was their first quad 1 win, and they had to get that because they had a loss to Valpo, which was a quad 4 loss. And your metrics can look great, but if you don't have a quad 1 win, and you have a quad 4 loss, you're probably not going to get an at-large bid to the NCAA. Yeah. They had to get this win. Loyola, on the other hand, they kind of needed it too. Their metrics are great, but again, this is their first quad 1 win, winning at Drake, who's 30th in the net or something.
Yeah, exactly.
The best case scenario for both of these teams was to get a split, and they got the split. And the thing about Loyola, the reason why I like them so much is they are just so damn good defensively, and it's not anything gimmicky, and it's not they're doing anything that's crazy. It's just they're over denying passing lanes. They are applying a ton of ball pressure. They have some rim protection. The big guy in the middle, I can never get his name, Ugwak or something like that.
I'm not talented with names either, so don't worry.
Yeah, they got Cam Krutwig, who provides you with the playmaking offensively, and he's a 6'8", 270-pound first team all fat guy, All America.
Welcome
how they say you got McDonald's All Americans? Well, he's an All McDonald's American is what he is, and he's such a great passer out of the high post. They run their offense through him, but he's complimented by the fact that they got the Ugwak kid. That's just a phenomenal athlete that can protect the rim, that can catch lobs, that really gives them a different dynamic in the front court. And they're just so good defensively. They're just so good, and when you have that kind of floor in terms of being that good on the defensive end, and you have the kind of players and the athletes that can match up with the high major teams, that is kind of the differentiator, right? And I always believe this, that the skill level between the high majors and the mid majors and the mid majors and the low majors, and even Division I to Division II and Division III, the skill level is not necessarily all that different. It is the physical tools. It is the fact that guys that are 6'3" and doing one thing in maybe in the Patriot League or in Division II, those guys are 6'9" and doing those same things at the high major level. That's the differentiator. And when you have a guy that can kind of help you match up with them, like Loyola does, that's significant. That matters a lot.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. So anyway, Day, I think it's about time that we let you get back to work so you don't get fired. You just finally got a coaching job. But listen, man, I always appreciate it. And hopefully we will have a really special guest for a later episode this week. And you know, we'll have some more information on that later. But yeah, that's my tease. So Da'Sean, always a pleasure. Hey, look, you got to get me a W.
I'm trying. I'm gonna do my part.
Make it happen. We cannot feel the 68 winners only. Okay.
I understand that. I understand the reputation. I understand the reputation. I'm going to do my part to uphold it. I got you.
Get it done. All right, man. I appreciate the time. Later, bro.